Welcome to the Stronger Together podcast, brought to you by Sandpoint Strength and Conditioning. Today I sit down with Coach Nick Bandy, who is our youth specialist here at Sandpoint Strength. I couldn't be more excited about youth getting into fitness, whether it's via sport or just being in a general gym class or just in the gym in general. That was a huge transformative thing for me in my teenage years. It has given me the gift of fitness and business and confidence for the rest of my life. And we are so fortunate here to have Coach Nick run our youth programs and do all of what I just said for the kids that come through those programs. We've seen kids be in there for 6, 7, 8 years and totally transform themselves. And they walk taller, they feel stronger, they move better, and they understand how fitness impacts their lives. So I think you're going to really enjoy this one. Before I go, don't forget that we are brought to you by Momentous Supplements. You can get 15% off your next order of Momentous Supplements by going to livemomentous.com and using the coupon code Sandpoint Strength, all one word.
All right, rock and roll. Nick, what's up?
Just left the gym. Now I'm here hanging out with you.
refuse my offer of a beer. It's 5 o'clock. After work, might as well, but no. Got to go to judo instead.
That's right. Yeah. Got to keep moving.
Yeah. So what I wanted to pick your brain or decided we were going to talk about youth stuff again. I know we did your kind of like how you started the gym, but I want to get heavy into youth.
Yeah.
Because I'm so passionate about it, and I know you obviously are too. And it's your program, but it just fires me up. And I think it's a time of year when kids start transitioning from sports and start looking at summer. And I think that having your perspective on to share with parents and other listeners, like what kids should be doing, and just the whole kind of gamut. So, I think let's talk about like what programs you're doing now, because you're doing a hell of a lot of them at the gym now for youth stuff.
Yeah, we've got, I think we talked about this last time. Year round, we always have our young athletes program for young kids. They're like 8, 9 into 11-year-olds. Then we have our teens program, the middle teens, the like 12 to 15-year-olds, and then our older teens for 16, 18-year-olds. So those run year round.
Yep.
But what's really fun is as the seasons change, as they do here in the Northwest, activities and sports change. And that's where those others kind of specialty programs come in. And that's been really fun to kind of grow and build and work with different athletes there. Like every fall I've been working with, the last few falls been working with the high school basketball team, doing like a preseason training program for those athletes, which has been really, really fun to watch and rewarding to see those athletes kind of take that into their season. And then at the same time, we're kind of fall season stuff. We're running into ski season. So I do a preseason ski race training program for our SARS program, which is our Schweitzer race, Alpine race school.
Yep.
And then kind of get a little bit of a break through the winter. Typically this winter we did a really fun like pre-soccer season training program, and then a mountain bike race team approached us and they wanted to do some training too. So we did like a 5-week program there. So it's a lot. It's kind of all over the place, which is really, really fun because you just, again, get to work with this wide variety of athletes doing different things, moving different ways. Then as we go kind of into the summertime, do a preseason golf program for the high school golf team. And that's like JV and varsity athletes. And then also been doing the last few years a kind of preseason football training. And that one's been a pretty fun program. They're typically like young middle school athletes that they're going to be going into like the high school weight room here pretty soon in a year or two. And it's been a program to do some conditioning for them before they go into their football season, but also it's been like a big movement review. Like let's get used to squatting and lifting and the movements that they're going to be seeing in their high school weight room. We kind of go through all of that, get them used to that stuff, go through movement patterns and lifts and how to lift and why we're doing it, why we're doing a set of 10 or 12 instead of a set of 3, stuff like that, and what those mean. So that way when they go into it, they know exactly what they're doing with their lifting programs. So yeah, it keeps me really entertained. It's really fun. And then through the school year, we also do a program with a homeschool academy, which is really great too. Come over one day a week. I've got 3 groups, anywhere from like 6 years old to 13. And yeah, they just run me in circles.
Yep. I think it's 22 years old. He's aged a lot over the last 2 years. Yeah, I met with a parent. I know you saw those kids when they came in, but when after you left, they were like, this is our favorite place in the world. Those kids were supposed to go play at the park, but they realized their mom was coming to visit me.
Oh, cool.
And they're like, yeah, we want to go in there because we love the gym. It's so much fun. And Nick's our favorite. And I just think that, it's cool for you to hear that, but I think it's also cool for kids to just start with that excitement and passion and fun early, because I think most gyms, like, that's just not the case for most gyms. It's machines, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably just not. I think they don't really understand how fun the gym can be if they don't start at a place like ours and under the guidance of someone like you. So it's just, again, super freaking cool. And that was like yesterday. That was one of those like just lit me up kind of moments, because when they were like, yeah, this is our favorite place. It's like, dude, that's the best thing you could ever hear, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I love that. That's, we've talked about that quite a bit with our adult classes, the community that you build with the gym. And that's what I've been really trying to build with the young athletes, the teens, all of our youth programs, is building more of that community. So I love when kids want to come in before the workout. We'll have kids come in. Yeah, typically we don't want them coming in too early because we might have clients or other classes and whatnot. But I love that they want to be there, and I encourage it, because they just want to come in and hang out. And their friends are here. They're coming to hang out too, get ready to work out. They're going to talk about their workout. We're building a whole nother community for that younger demographic. Someplace like right after school, they just come over and hang out. And like the basketball team, before their program started, those guys were all gung-ho. So I gave them like extra programming. So they'd come in, their workout would be on the front desk. They come in, they do their own thing that I wrote out for them, their accessory work. And then, an hour later when the class actually started, then we did the real basketball workout. So, but they just wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will encourage that every day of the week.
Yep.
It's super cool to see. And I really, really enjoy trying to kind of grow that. It's very rewarding.
Yeah. I don't ever see kids being pried out of the car to go like get shoved in the door. Like, you signed up for this. Like, we're finishing out the thing, like, which is not like, that's a common thing in other sports, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think I really, really try to keep this goal-driven, professionalism with the programs, especially these sport-specific programs where, like, I'm doing a preseason training program for mountain biking or basketball or golf. Like, those are very specific, but at the same time, if those kids are going to get anything out of it, they have to have a good time. Mm-hmm. They are not having a good time, they're just going to glaze over. They're not going to try. They're not going to put the effort in. So it has to be this fun, positive environment. And that's like one of the main things that I try to do with this program.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not having fun with it, you're not going to continue. You're not going to push it. You're not going to learn anything. You're not going to want to, so, and that's it. Like, if kids can kind of learn that fitness and getting strong and doing all this stuff is fun, they're just going to do it naturally as they move on out of our programs. And that's the real goal. Yeah.
And I think, like, the other thing I noticed about you too is, like, you legitimately care. Like, all about those kids, all about what they're into outside of the gym, about their whole lives. You're just so invested in them. So I know you're probably not going to you're too humble to brag about that too much for yourself, but I do notice that, and that's pretty darn cool. And you have relationships with the parents, and I think that's just like watching some of these kids they've been in the programs with you for years, and that you're still observing their careers and where they're at in life. That's just really neat. So
yeah, that's been really. Yeah, you're right. I really like that. Go to the basketball games or the football games, go watch the athletes, see what they're doing. Wave from the stands like a dork, like
who's that guy?
That's me. Yeah. Parents asking, do you have a child?
Yeah.
No, I don't have any children out there playing. I'm just here watching
with a mustache.
Strange kids.
Normally with a fall mustache.
Yeah.
It's even better.
No, but it's so fun to see these kids, like the basketball kids or these ski racers where, I love skiing. So I get to work with them all fall. And a lot of those athletes will stick around here, after the ski season, and they do the like teens class for some cross training. But then come ski season, get to see them just cruise down the course year after year and see how they improve and how they get better and they get faster and they become more better, stronger athletes. Like, that's really, really fun to watch.
Yeah.
I sometimes I wish I had more time so I can go, I don't know, I guess watch all these kids.
Yeah.
But it's great.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, like, for somebody listening, so we have regular programs that run year round, and then we work the sports teams specifically before their preseason. Like, can you explain, like, why why somebody wouldn't just do a year round, or like what the evolution is for somebody as a youth athlete throughout the year.
Yeah, sure. Like you do see a lot of athletes that are doing the same thing year round. Sports programs are crazy different compared to when I was a kid. Like kids that are, 7th grade or 6th grade, they're traveling year round to play their sport. Like soccer is a pretty good example. You'll see kids playing soccer year round. But like these other teens programs that we have, the ones that just run year round, those for me, for those athletes, those are phenomenal cross training programs. Yep. Like what I see quite a bit is like kids that are running a lot in their sport. If they've got a running focused sport like soccer, they start getting all sorts of overuse injuries. And so these programs, I use them to get them moving in different direction. They're still getting strong. They're getting stronger, actually. They're balancing themselves out. And they're also giving themselves a chance to recover and kind of rebuild the things that they've been just overusing.
Yeah.
If you're always moving in one direction, you're going to wear that thing out. And you're going to build some imbalances. You're going to get strong in certain areas and much weaker in other areas. You're going to get tight in some and loose in others. And pretty soon you're all out of whack and you hurt and you ache and it's not fun anymore. You're just challenged. You're just kind of fighting this uphill battle, trying to play the sport that you love to do. So with these other programs, even the sport-specific programs, if I'm like this basketball one, for example, just because it's kind of easy to use, sure, it's a program designed specifically for basketball, but we do not go straight into the same basketball movements that they're going to be doing in practice and in game. We start in a broad spectrum and we move them in multiple different directions, different ways. And then as we get closer to the program, then it evolves and it starts becoming a bit more sport specific. But by that time, they've already built out this foundation. They've worked out imbalances, if it's strength imbalances, if it's mobility imbalances. We've already kind of covered all that stuff. We've crossed our T's, dotted our I's kind of thing, and built up this good foundation that then they can kind of run off of. Then they're an athlete that can take advantage of all of their true potential and go to the court with it.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing that, you see it all the time. You're just kind of, they're out there, they're playing the thing, but they're kind of limping along a little bit, or after games, practices, whatnot, they're icing this, they're icing that. And that's just I've seen lots of athletes go through that where they're trying to play their sport and they're trying to enjoy it. They love it. But they're wincing the entire time. You know, there's this thorn in their side, and it's just from overtraining and overusing it. So I think there's a huge, huge value in switching up your sport, moving in different directions, even if it's not the gym. If you're playing soccer one season, then you're playing football, and then you're basketball, or you're skiing, or you're doing something, that's still cross training.
Yep.
Yeah. And that is so good for kids, getting them to move different ways, think about things differently as well. There's also just a huge learning, potential when you start getting into different programs. If they've been kind of doing the same thing, they've got the patterns down, they know what to do, they're just refining their skill. But if you can challenge them differently with it's a different play, a different strategy, a different movement, a different set of skills, then they're growing in a much different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's overlooked quite a bit too. A different sport becomes a different challenge, different problem that needs to be solved. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I've never, I beat this drum all the time, but I've never heard of a high level coach say kids should only play one sport. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. Every high level coach, recruiter, anybody I've ever talked to says we only will take kids that play multiple sports. And Brandon Casey was on this a while ago. He's probably the most successful person we've ever cranked out of the gym. He's trying to go into the NFL and probably will. And he said exactly the same thing. He couldn't, I asked him to name me somebody on his team that had only played one sport, and he couldn't come up with a single one. Yeah. And I think parents end up with this, I don't know if they get sold by it by the coaches. If it's a selfish thing, the coaches want their kids to play soccer year round, or if it's truly they think, well, more is better. If they want to play this, then we're just going to keep having to play this. But there's somewhere along the line, there's a total miscommunication from what's being told and acted upon at the top level of sport and what's being done at the youth level of sport. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but something is becoming very misconstrued. And what you're doing is exactly what they should be doing. If they're not playing another sport, then they should be in the gym becoming a generalist again, so they can work on the basics and go back into specialization as they prep for their thing. So
Yeah, and I think there's a huge difference between kind of athletes that are wanting to stay focused on their sport and only do that sport because they feel like they need to be focused on it, versus those athletes that are playing their sport and other activities. And let's see, what am I trying to say here? They're of kind of turning it on and dialing things back based on the seasonal timing of things.
yeah,
There's the time to like really hone in and focus. And then there's times where you can kind of like lay back a little bit. Sure, you might still be playing, but your intensity level can increase and decrease throughout the season and like the program. And for example, like if I have kids in my program that are swimmers or track athletes and they've got a meet coming up this weekend. Sure, yeah, this week, like take it easy. Do not kill it here in the gym and make your legs so sore to where you can't even, sit on the toilet.
Yeah.
You've got a priority here. But 2 months before that meet, sure, yeah, let's hit it. Let's like hit it hard because this is the time to do it. So there's this range of intensity that you should be kind of cranking up and dial it back. Crank it up, dial it back. It doesn't always have to be on or off. It's always changing.
yeah,
And I feel like that kind of gets missed quite a bit as well with athletes. And I feel like coaches don't fully understand that either, that you don't always have to drive these kids all the time or prevent them from doing other things. You can like balance that out. Sure, it's like a good analogy is like if I only have $100 to spend on my physical activities, I'm sure the coach is going to want me to spend all $100 on that one sport, but it's not going to hurt anything if I spend 30 that on some other activity where I'm still getting strong, I'm still moving. Yeah. It's actually benefiting me more because I'm moving in different ways. But then when it comes game time, sure, $100 all in, like,
yep.
Yeah, without thinking about it twice. So I think there's a lot to be said about that too.
Yeah, for sure. And the only real athletes I'm working with right now, other than our general people, is I've got a bunch of fighters. And it's the same thing. Like it's all general. Like it's just general fitness to supplement their fighting. And then 8 weeks out, we go into a fight camp where it gets pretty intense, but they can't do that. I would break every single one of those people if we did that year. If we did what we do for those 8 weeks year round, they'd be dead.
Yeah.
They'd be sick. They'd be hurt. They'd be fatigued. They'd quit. And I think that's like, I don't know, such a specific example, but it's still the same for any other sport.
Yeah, it's the same thing with every other sport, and you see it in every sport too. You'll see parents where they have their kids in soccer, and then they take a break to go run track. It's like, well, like, sure, yeah, it's a different sport, but they're just sprinting even harder and faster. Like, get them to move a little bit differently and build up a better foundation. You're really good at that. I like watching the way that you train and work out, like your intensity, your cycles go on and off, and you'll dial back and build up your foundation, then you refine it and build up your strength, and you dial back and make your foundation more robust, and you cycle through it back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And that's how you build a really strong athlete,
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening enough with young athletes.
Yeah.
That cycle of build the foundation, build some strength, refine it, hit hard, and then do that cycle again and again and again. Like that's how you push the needle.
Yeah. You've read some of Bill Parisi stuff. You've been through a lot of his materials. I had him on another podcast I do, and I've chatted with him quite a bit. And he is probably one of the foremost strength coaches and performance coaches for youth in the world. And he said time and time again, like the best athletes he's ever had that just come in and pick up a sport and do the best at it and succeed at are the farm kids. Like he repeats that over and over and over. He's like, the farm kids are the best because they have all the like practical uses of their bodies. They're squatting, they're bending, they're rotating, they're carrying. And he said, those are time and time and time again. He's like, the best kids in sport are the farm kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that, it's wild. And it is, it's because they're moving their body in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So it can only be beneficial, so coming into some of these, like our general teens program where that's what we're doing, in their off season and kids off season, coming in and doing that. It's It makes all the difference. We have athletes that go into their football program or whatever it is after just doing our general teens program, and the coaches come up and say, it's a night and day difference between that kid and some of the other kids that have, haven't been moving in multiple different ways. They just don't learn what their body can do and how to use it, how to move it, how to apply power, how to stabilize it as well, how to move safely.
Yeah.
So those farm kids are doing that same thing, bucking bales and shoveling things and carrying pails and all that stuff. Yeah, it's super beneficial.
And it's like the biggest, like you think the injury prevention too, that's a lot of the axe he's trying to grind too. Is he talks a lot about fashion, he gets super nerdy on it, but the example that really resonated with me, or his metaphor, was like wet cement and rebar and wet cement. And like, he's like, if you keep sloshing the cement back and forth in the same, forward and backwards, like it's going to start to set in the bottom. He's like, but if you move it side to side, shake it around or run it around in the cement mixer, like it's not going to set. And so you're not going to like develop that rigidity that's going to cause injuries through lack of a range of motion down the line. And I just thought that was such a good, kids need to, if they go forward and backwards all the time, or just forwards, if they're just playing soccer all the time, and they start to do more side to side, like they're going to end up getting hurt. And I think we've seen that a lot we've seen a lot of torn knees, ACLs, MCLs, meniscus.
Lots of foot, Achilles injuries, tight Achilles, tight calves, transfer down into their feet. And, then they're out there trying to run, but it's just super painful. I see a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're like 12. It's like, wait a minute, hold on.
Super tight hips. Yeah, which is wild. Like, I feel like 12-year-olds they should just be like a pretzel. They should be able to move any which way they want to.
Yeah.
And some kids can, and it's really cool. The kids that can move, it's a night and day difference. Like, you watch the way that they perform any kind of movement in the gym or outside the gym, and it's different than those kids that might have some like mobility restrictions or some imbalances, some like core stability issues, things like that.
Yep.
You'll see it. You can see it just watching kids run around on the court or out in the field.
Yep.
You can kind of see how they're moving. Yeah.
And we see it too, like with our older population in the gym. I'm talking like the older, like the people that haven't been moving, like their cement is set. And again, it's like, that's such a broader or like longer term, but very obvious example of what'll happen if you're not moving in every direction. And like, those people can't sit down. And obviously they're not trying to perform like an athlete is, but I think the example is still really relevant. It's just so obvious to see. It's the same thing.
Yeah. And in our programs, my goal, I want them to work hard. My motto is quality over quantity or intensity. I'd rather see them work smart and well through things than just ramp it up to 110% and blow up.
Yep.
But also their goal is to be able to train today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the next day.
Yep.
And the next day.
Yeah.
If they go so hard today to where they cannot train tomorrow, they're sore, they're beat up, then they're doing it wrong.
Yep.
So if you can't train, then you can't train. You're not getting better. You're not getting stronger. But if you can, then you're just going to slowly be picking everybody off.
Yep.
Because you're training that many more days.
Yeah.
You're moving that many more times, that many more ways, and it builds. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're out from an injury or something like that, or you're just beat up, tired, exhausted, then you're going backwards. If you're not going forwards, you're going backwards.
Yeah. And I think the biggest injury prediction is having a previous injury. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you've hurt yourself as a 12 or 13-year-old, the prevalence of that coming back around, like it's going to be like tenfold. I don't know the exact statistics, but I know it's high. And so if you're hurting yourself at a young age, like, and you think you're going to play in college, like good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. You see a lot of kids that have something going on, and I don't know, it just keeps kind of happening. That habit or that approach that they're taking is not working, but they're not changing that routine.
Yeah.
And so you'll see an injury this year, and then if it's not next year, it's 2 years later, you'll see something else, because they're kind of just approaching it the same way.
Yeah.
But that's not working out for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is terrible to see.
On the injury, we kind of went down the injury route, which I think is a good transition to talk about. Like, I still hear parents say, "Oh, I didn't think kids were supposed to lift weights," which drives me kind of crazy. But it's just, again, been proven time and time again that that's not the case. And the biggest concern was growth plates, and like, it's going to start their growth or it's going to break their growth plates. And it's like, it's quite frankly just not true? What's your analogy, or what's your kind of like, where do you come from on that when people talk about, no, I thought kids weren't supposed to lift weights?
I mean, kids are obviously they're different than the adults, but it's the same thing. Like, sure, you can get hurt lifting weights as an adult if you lift them wrong.
Yep.
You know, it's the same thing with kids. But it's also load. Kids' neurological systems just are not fully developed, right? Their body's not sending all the signals that my body's sending to my muscles, my joints, my tissues. So we just we modify the load, but our priority is making sure that they're moving well. So as long as they're moving well and building those movement patterns, and they've got good form, technique, and then they can lift weight, they can get strong, they can build muscle, all in a very, very safe way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the controlled environment of the gym is like, it's the laboratory where they're allowed to play and experiment in a safe way, where I think I find it interesting. The same parents will be worried about their kids lifting weights, will watch their kid jump off the top of the jungle gym. It's like, oh, that's just playing. It's like, well, the force that's produced when they hit the ground like that, like that's way more aggressive than anything they're going to ever encounter in the gym.
Yeah.
So why don't we teach them how to land in the gym? Why don't we teach them how to be strong in the gym so they can land correctly? And if they try that when they're 15, they don't blow up.
Yeah. No, I think what you just said, using the gym, the weight room as a laboratory, is spot on. Like, this is our chance, our time to kind of like learn, test, prove things, and then build. So then when we're out in an uncontrolled environment, you've got it. You know exactly how to move. You've tested this, you've tried it, and you've done it time and time and again. So you just have it down.
Yeah.
And I tell my athletes that all the time. Like, this is your time to practice, test things out, see how you move, see how you might not move, and iron all that stuff out. This is your lab to work through all that stuff. And then that way you have all the answers by the time you go out on the court or on the field, or you're in a more reactive environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Jumping and landing seems like such an obvious thing, but like I've worked with some of those kids. I think it was last summer, the basketball team especially, and like we were doing, by your programming was like working on landing and working on jumping and making sure that like, so I'm or you are observing them and making corrections on those patterns before they do it 150 times in a basketball game. And it's not, I think those kids that haven't been in the gym or haven't had anybody watching them or haven't had any corrections, like it's harder to work that stuff out once the motor patterns have been ingrained. So the earlier they can get in the gym and learn and be observed, the better.
Absolutely. And when they're out there on the court playing, they're reacting. They don't have time to think about, as I'm coming down off this, I need to land here in my foot and absorb here. No, but in the gym we can.
Yeah.
And what's great about that is there's no pressure from a team sport or maybe a non-team sport perspective. I love that there's no pressure. No one's relying on your performance when you're working out at the gym. It's all about you. So if you need to slow down as you're doing this jump or this move, perfect, because you need a little bit more time to dial that in and practice. That is exactly what that space is for.
Yeah.
And I think that removal of pressure really allows that space for kids to figure that out comfortably.
Yep.
If you want to turn it on, sure, you can. You can go hard and fast as long as you're moving well, right?
Yeah.
If you're not, I'm going to correct you.
Yeah.
Slow you down a bit.
Yeah.
But that's it. It gives them that opportunity to kind of work through all those ranges of motion, how your body lands and moves and pivots and jukes and jives, and how you should be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We start really slow on plyometric stuff, paying a ton of attention to like where you're at on your foot. Then as it transfers up your foot, what's your calf doing? Where's your knee? What's your hip doing? Where's your core? It's just, we're going from all the way at the bottom all the way up. And that way, then when they're playing and they're reacting, they're playing in their sport, they already have that muscle pattern down.
Yeah.
Their body knows exactly what to do.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a ton of fun. I really, really like the process. And you see kids like get into it and they're like, oh, when we're like practicing these like minute little things, they start to nerd out on it too. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, I was kind of like stumbling all over the place trying to do this a minute ago, but now like I can move from here to there sideways and then jump over this thing and like, look like Spider-Man, which is fun. Like those athletes though, they've got springs. It's neat to see like when they start getting their bodies organized, they can make some moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. What about nutrition? You've been doing more nutrition with the young kids too. Like what's it Do you have any, it's hard, I think, well, I'll let you go. Like what's your, let's talk about youth nutrition stuff.
Yeah, youth nutrition stuff's always a bit tricky. Like kids are at the mercy of their parents. They don't have a whole lot of control.
Yep.
Nor are they thinking about it that much. They're just going to eat what's ever in front of them.
Yep.
So really what I get them to think about are the basics. And it's like, how many times a day are you eating? Because a lot of kids, it's like 2 times a day.
Yep.
Like they don't want to eat breakfast. They'll eat something at school. After school, they'll go into their sport. Right after school, they won't really eat anything. And then they'll have dinner when they get back. There's your 2 meals in that school meal. Usually it's like some hostess something, a piece of pizza. It's wild.
Yeah.
So then it's like, all right, well, let's see. How do you feel? We talk about how you feel when you're trying to perform and just how much energy you think you're getting out of this stuff. And then we really just keep it pretty basic and high level. It's really just creating habits.
Mm-hmm.
So simple things is all right, well, let's just start with breakfast. Let's just add 1 more meal. You just need to eat.
Yeah.
And controlling where they can. Well, can you throw a banana in your backpack? Can you throw an apple in your backpack? Sure. Yep. Got it. Cool. Check. Then after school, eat it before you go play your sport. And then they make that connection of I had this after school snack before I went to track practice and I felt good. Mm-hmm. That performance, that question of well, how do you feel when you eat this? Or how do you feel when you're trying to perform? They start to make that connection. Because I find a ton of kids just undereat. They don't eat enough. They're really worried about just all the junk out there of as far as I don't know, shouldn't eat carbs or don't eat too much of this, don't eat too much of that. I think everyone's a little hesitant to that, but really those kids, they burn so many calories a day. Their metabolisms are running crazy off the charts and they're active, they're moving. So those athletes need to eat. For example, had a basketball kid, what do you eat before each game? And his this is no joke. He would have a packet of Sour Patch Kids and a Red Bull.
Nice.
Every day before game.
Nice.
Are you kidding?
Wow.
And really, okay, for me, I'm sweet. Well, then this is going to be easy.
Yeah.
That's really easy to improve upon that. But just getting them to start thinking about the choices that they make and how it improves or doesn't improve their performance when they're trying to play their sport. So it's a lot of that stuff, but it's a ton of fun. Every program that I kind of run, we'll start filtering in little at the end of workouts, just conversations of what do you guys know about nutrition? What does that mean to you? We start very high level. What do you guys eat before a game, before a race, before whatever, and things like that. And a lot of it for me is just getting them informed, thinking about things a little bit more. Like I said, frequency of eating, how much, and that's kind of it, because mainly kids just aren't eating enough.
Yeah. That was me. I mean, I played high level sport in high school and I didn't know anything about nutrition. And I would eat a bag of chips and a soda at lunch and then finish out school and have practice at 4:30. And I wouldn't have had anything. I mean, that was it. And I think I figured it out because I got into fitness stuff in my junior and senior year. But comparatively, I wouldn't know, but I'm sure I felt like garbage and I would have played so much better had I actually eaten any sort of food that was productive instead of, I don't know. I think kids just don't necessarily know. Back in my day, I don't think we really had as much of the internet, so there wasn't the accessibility that wasn't there. So they might have a little bit more, but still, I think there's such a...
Yeah, it's still a weird thing. I think there's so much information out there. You don't really know what to believe, what's right, what's wrong, how to extract some of that information, and with some of these athletes, if I have 10 in a program that I'm talking about, all right, what are you eating before a game? What do you guys do midweek? What's your day-to-day routine look like? And how do you eat through that? Out of those 10, I might get one who wants more. Yeah. So for most of them, keep it pretty high level. And then for the athlete that's I'd like to put on more muscle, or I've really been struggling with this, or my energy level is just tanks. Then those athletes, then we start diving into it in more detail. I'll use, can I say names on here?
Sure.
Sweet. All right. Then I'm calling out Chandler. Chandler is in our teens program forever. And now he's in the adults program and he's an animal.
Yeah, he is.
Even last year he took his first big job up in Alaska. So he'd be up in Alaska for a couple of weeks. Then he'd come home for a week, and he wouldn't work out for 2 weeks. And he'd come back and just destroy everybody because he's just built like such a good foundation.
Yes, correct. But that's definitely not how we started.
No, not at all. I remember he was probably, I don't know, a junior in high school. And he had questions about nutrition. So as he had a question, I'd answer it. Right. I feel like the biggest mistake is giving people too much information too soon, especially with kids. You don't want them to overthink it. You want to keep it really simple. You can only change one or two things at a time. And so, I started having a little conversation with Chandler about it, this and that. And then I was like, well, let's do a little science experiment. I was like, I don't care what you eat. Eat your normal routine. Don't be ashamed of putting anything down on this piece of paper, but let's just write down what you eat in a week.
Yep.
Right? Like and it can be as organized or unorganized as you want. If you write out, this is what I had for breakfast, this is what I had for lunch, or if you just list a weeks long running list, sure, that's fine. So I had him do that for a week, and then he turned it into me, and I'm like, all right, let me look at this for a little bit. And I went through it day to day, and I like crunched the macros on everything that he ate. I did all the numbers, and he was averaging 12 to 15 grams of protein a day.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That'll do it.
Yeah. And he was eating all sorts of snacky carbs, crackers, cookies, like all that stuff. And I find like that was a few years ago, but that is pretty much the average too.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
They are all that way.
Yep.
Sure, kids are like, oh, protein shakes. Yeah, I have a protein shake. Like one protein shake. If they're eating the way that Chandler was, but then they think that they're doing something, they're killing it because they added a protein shake in there. You're still, you had your 12 grams of protein plus a protein shake, 20 grams. You're still only at 32. You got a long ways to go, and protein shakes are not the fix. That's a much bigger picture thing. Like, let's just learn how to eat and have real meals first.
Yeah.
Before you even start thinking about supplements. Yeah, it's pretty wild. But
he's been like, he's just the perfect example. And you'd never know that when you looked at him now. Like, he is just a little animal. Yeah. And you'd never have ever. I mean, he started here before? Was that before you?
Yeah, he's been here longer than I have.
But his first couple of years, he's been such a great kid, period.
Yeah.
He's not a kid anymore. I feel like even older talking about him now as an adult and doing his things. But anyways, he's always had a good attitude. He's always worked out, but like it wasn't until he really started paying attention to that nutrition stuff that I think he
really changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden he had more energy.
Yeah.
Which like maybe, I don't know if that was a good thing, giving Chandler more energy, like he destroys me in workouts.
Yeah.
But then he has more energy,
Yeah.
Like he's doing everything. He's skiing, he's backcountry skiing, he's mountain biking, he's working at the gym every single day. The guy can just go.
Yeah.
And he feels good.
Yeah.
He feels really good.
Yeah.
So it's really neat. And, some of my, some of my other higher level athletes, like in some of my, like the basketball program or the golf program, stuff like that. Some of those athletes too have done similar things where like, all right, well, let's just write things down. And it's really neat to see the difference. Like, all right, you just start changing one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And then they just have better energy. They have better results. Because you can kind of do anything. You can, really hit the training hard, but if your nutrition isn't dialed, and it doesn't have to be perfect,
right?
But it's just not Sour Patch Kids and Red Bull, that's not going to get you there.
Try that tomorrow.
Yeah.
See how that goes. Don't stay away from me in the afternoon.
If I see you laying on the floor, I'm going to know why.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. It's neat to have like a real conversation with these kids. I'm not trying to sell them on anything. Every kid is different. So that's the first thing. Like, well, what do you got going on? What's your routine? Like, not every nutrition client is the same. Actually, they're all different. Some are going to have access to XYZ and some aren't, and some have this kind of daily schedule and timing and some don't, so, and everybody's body's different. Everybody's body reacts differently. So to teach them that like, hey, what worked for this guy over there, and if it doesn't work for you, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, there's so many influencers and there's so much social media pressure that it's so easy to see these amazing athletes and what they're doing. And then, like people are trying to do what they're doing and it's not working. It's neat to like let people know that that's okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Yes.
Your body just needs something different.
Yeah.
That's it. You just need a little different here or a little different change there, different structure, and that's totally fine. And that's completely normal. So I think people get down on themselves thinking that they can't, there's something wrong with them, but that's not the issue at all.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bullshit online too. Like as far as it's like whatever people see, like people are either selling something or they're selling an idea so they can get more, or they're being, there's so much or it's just 1 second into their world. Like I just think that the transparency is so inadequate to actually understand what's going on.
Yeah,
that it's just not a fair perspective to make any sort of conclusion from.
But when you see it, hundreds of times a day, God, it's some of it's going to filter in.
Yeah,
like if you want it to or not. So just helping kids kind of manage that a little bit.
Yeah.
Then it just helps with their self-confidence, their awareness, their body awareness. Once they kind of know what they need and that it's okay that they need this instead of that, then they're like, great, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And they just run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The confidence that you can kind of build with this stuff is amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. That's super rewarding to see kids like really grow that way as well.
And it's just like the impact you're making for the rest of their lives. It's just it can't be overstated. We see so many adults come in with, eating disorders or issues or misconceptions or fears of the gym. Like I think that again, like you're talking about, you've seen some of these kids for 6-7 years now, but the continuation of that for another 50 or 60 is like such a cool thing to think through. So.
Yeah, I think about that quite a bit. It's fun to always I was just having this conversation with somebody where, I get to train them, I get to work with them, I get to see them at the gym, I get to see them on good days and bad days, and then I get to see them in their sport and their activity, and then pretty soon they're graduating high school, and then I get to hear about when they come back from college and like all this stuff. And I feel like such a dork, when I was a kid. And like my mom's friends or my parents' friends are like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you asking me all the questions? Why do you care? Like, I'm that guy.
Yep.
It's really exciting to see what they're doing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So it's a ton of fun. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. I know you got to go to pajama fighting.
Yeah.
Got to go to
That's
judo.
right. I'm gonna put my PJs on.
Where do people get a hold of you to answer some more questions and talk about their kids?
Email's the best way. Email's just nick@sandpointstrength.com, or stop by the gym and check us out at sandpointstrength.com, our website, and then you have access there to book a intro with one of us, or just email me directly. And happy to have any kind of conversation, just because there's so many different kids out there doing different sports, different activities, different needs, multiple activities. So like putting together a specific program for an athlete, it's great. We can totally do that. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. See you soon.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that as I did. And don't forget that Nick's got programs running year round, depending on the time of year. That'll vary on what time they are. But also that he runs programs for youth sports teams and mostly preseason, sometimes off season. But if you have a youth or a team who could benefit from Nick and his insight, which if you have one of those things, you definitely would. Don't be shy. Don't hesitate to reach out to him at nick@sandpointstrength.com, or you can just go to our general sandpointstrength.com webpage and find us there. Don't forget, livemomentous.com for all of your supplement needs. Use the coupon code SandpointStrength for 15% off.